There is no single trick that lowers your blood pressure, and no food on this earth that takes the place of a doctor's care. Anybody who tells you different is selling something. But the plain old way the old folks lived of an evening did keep their pressure low, year after year, over a whole lifetime. What surprised me when I finally sat down and studied it is how much of what they did turns out to be real and proven and costs nothing. Not a cure, a start, the kind that is in your own hands tonight. My name is Noah Yoder. I farm a piece of ground in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, that my grandfather cleared and my father worked before me. The house I sit in of an evening, this plain white farmhouse with the deep porch my grandfather built with his own hands, and my wife Ruth keeps a garden out back that feeds the both of us most of the year. I am a farmer, and I want to say that plain and early. Not a doctor, and nothing I tell you tonight is meant to stand in for one. The most important thing I will say in this talk, I am going to say before anything else. If a doctor has put you on medicine for your blood pressure, you keep taking it exactly the way you were told. You do not stop it. You do not cut the pill in half on your own or skip a day because you watched a video and felt hopeful. That is a dangerous thing to do, and it is not yours to decide alone. It belongs to you and your doctor together at the kitchen table with your real numbers in front of you. Everything I am about to tell you works alongside that care, walking beside it, the way a good workhorse walks beside another in the same harness, not instead of it. There is one habit I will get to, the evening drink, that actually changes how your medicine acts inside you. And that alone is reason enough to talk to your doctor before you lean on any of this. So take it as what it is, the old plain way, offered to a grown person who can carry it to their own doctor. The old folks understood one thing in their bones, and they never once put a word to it. Your blood pressure is not meant to hold steady around the clock. It is built to come down at night. When a body lies down in the dark and drifts off, the pressure in the vessels is supposed to ease off, sink down, roughly a tenth of the way or more below where it ran in the daytime. Think of the wood stove on a winter night. You do not let it roar till morning. You bank the fire down low, let it settle to coals, and it keeps the house through till dawn without burning itself out. A body does the same thing with its pressure. It banks the fire down overnight, so the heart and the vessels get their long rest. That nightly settling is a real, protective thing, and the people who study the heart can measure it on a machine that reads your pressure right through your sleep. What they have learned is worth knowing. The folks whose pressure comes down properly at night tend to do better over the long haul. And the folks whose pressure will not settle, whose fire never banks down, who run near as high a sleep as they do awake, those folks tend to carry more trouble down the road, more strain on the heart, more risk to the vessels in the brain and the kidneys. The settling matters. It may matter more than the daytime number alone. There is a thing the old folks felt in their days without ever knowing the reason for it. A body's pressure does not only settle at night, it comes back up again in the morning, and it comes up with a rush, climbing fast in the first hour or two after a person wakes and rises. The doctors have a name for that morning climb, and they have noticed something sobering about it. More heart trouble strikes in those morning hours than at any other time of the day, and that difference tells. A pressure that settled down soft and low all through the night has a gentle hill to climb, come sunup. But a pressure that never settled, that ran high straight through the dark, starts the morning already high and climbs from there. So the quiet of the night is not only about the night, it sets up the whole day that follows. So think about how the old folks spent an evening, and you will see they built their whole night around that settling without ever knowing they were doing it. Supper came early, while the sun was still up over the fields. The heavy work was already behind them. The house went quiet, There was no late fuss, no bright screen throwing light in their faces at 10 o'clock, no loud program keeping the mind stirred up past its bedtime. There was chores done, a plain meal, a little sitting, a prayer, and an early bed in a dark bedroom. Every piece of that evening, it turns out, gave the body room to bank its fire down the way it was made to. A calm, early, light evening lets the settling happen. A loud, heavy, late one fights it every step. The old folks won that fight every single night, and they never even knew there was a fight to win. So let us walk through that evening, piece by piece, and I will show you where each of these habits does its quiet work. And the biggest one of all, the single strongest lever a person has, it lands right there at the supper table. Salt. Most of a day's salt does not ride in at breakfast. It rides in on the evening meal. The supper plate carries more of it than any other, and in our day that plate is too often the packaged kind, the boxed kind, the restaurant kind, the frozen dinner heated up, and the canned soup poured out and the deli meat stacked cold. Nearly all the salt a modern body takes in was put there by a factory or a restaurant kitchen long before it ever reached the table, hidden down inside the food where you cannot taste how much is really there. And of all the meals, supper is where the most of it comes in. This is where it reaches your pressure. Picture salt as something that makes the body hold water, the way a field with a plugged tile drain holds water and goes soggy and heavy. The more salt rides in, the more water the body holds on to, and the more water it holds, the harder the heart has to push against fuller vessels. Push against a full line all day and all night, and the pressure runs high. I will tell you what fooled me the longest. It is not the salt shaker on your own table that does the real damage. Shake the shaker over your potatoes all you like. That is a small part of the whole. The salt that runs a number up is the salt already hidden in the food long before you carry it home. It hides in the bread and the rolls, in the deli meat, the ham, the bacon, the sausage. It is packed into the cheese, the canned soup, the frozen dinner, the pizza. The folks who study where a whole country's salt comes from find that most of it was put in at the factory or the restaurant kitchen, not shaken on by the person eating, which is a hard truth and a hopeful one at the very same time because it means the fix is not in scolding yourself over the shaker. The fix is in choosing the plain food that never had the salt hidden in it to start with. So the plain truth is this, and it is proven about as solid as anything in this business. Cutting the salt is one of the most reliable ways there is to bring a high number down. When folks eat the plain way the old people ate, straight off the garden, without the factory salt buried in everything, the top number comes down. Several points for a great many people, and more than that for the folks who started out high to begin with. Done in real earnest, kept up day after day, that one plain change has moved a person's top number about as much as a mild blood pressure pill would. I am not telling you it replaces the pill. Remember, you do not touch the pill without your doctor. What I am telling you is that the plate itself is that strong a lever. That is worth sitting with. And the garden does not just help by leaving the salt out. It helps a second way. The plain food that grows in Ruth's garden, the tomatoes and the green beans, the potatoes with the skin on, the greens and the squash and the dried beans we put up for winter. All of that carries something inside it that pushes back against salt. It works against the salt from the other direction, helps the body let go of that held water, helps bring the number back down. So you have got the two things working together. Less salt riding in, and more plain garden food helping it out. It is the balance of the two that moves the number, not one heroic vegetable. The whole plain plate, the way it came off the ground for a few hundred years before anybody thought to put our supper in a box. It is the humblest food of all that carries the most of that pushback. Not anything fancy, not anything dear. The potato with its skin left on. Dried beans we soak overnight and cook down slow of a winter day. Leafy greens, the squash off the vine, the tomato still warm from the sun. Those plain things sit near the very top of the list for helping a body let go of the held water and ease the pressure back down. So a person does not need to go hunting some special cure on a store shelf. It has been sitting in the garden row the whole time, cheap as dirt, which is just about where it grows. If you took nothing else from tonight but that, go light with the salt and fill the rest of the plate with what grows in the dirt, you would have the strongest single thing in your hands already. But there's more to a right evening, so let us keep going. The next piece is one folks do not always want to hear, and I will say it gentle, but I will say it straight. It is the evening drink, the nightcap, that glass to take the edge off after a long day. For a long time, people told each other a little drink was good for the heart. I believed it myself for years. But the people who study this the closest have looked again, hard, at a great many folks over a great many years, and the plain finding is this. A drink to unwind does not settle your pressure down. Over time, dose by dose, glass by glass, it nudges the pressure up. Not all at once, not in a way you would feel of an evening, but steady. Over the months and years, it lifts the number instead of lowering it. It does not take much to do it. When the researchers looked close at many thousands of folks across several countries, even the people who took just the one drink a day, only the one, showed their pressure creeping higher over the years than the folks who took none at all. Far less than the heavy drinkers, mind you, but higher all the same. And the ones who started out with a high number already felt it the most, their pressure answering the drink more, not less. It made no difference whether it was a beer, or a glass of wine, or a little whiskey. The kind of drink does not matter. It is the alcohol itself, and the body keeps count of every glass. And the heart doctors have stopped hedging about it. They now say it about as plain as they say anything. For your pressure, less is better, and none is best. I know that is a hard word for some. But let me give you the good part, because there is a good part, and it is a real one. The body answers fast on this. This is not one of those changes where you wait 10 years to see anything. Folks who cut back on the evening drink have watched their numbers come down within a few weeks. Weeks, not years. That is the body thanking you almost right away for leaving the bottle on the shelf. Leaving that nightcap be is one of the plainest kindnesses you can do your own pressure, and one of the quickest to pay you back. And there is a second reason to let it go, and it circles right back to what I promised you at the start. If you take pills for your pressure, the evening drink does not just sit quiet alongside them. It reaches in and changes the way that medicine works inside you. Sometimes it works against the medicine and steals its strength. Sometimes it pushes the same direction too hard and drops a person too low, sets them dizzy and unsteady on their feet, and for an older body, a hard fall is no small thing. Either way, the drink is mixing itself into the medicine's work whether you meant it to or not. That is exactly the kind of thing you carry to your doctor and lay on the table honest. How much you drink, how often, and what you are taking. Let the person who knows medicine sort out what it means for you. It also happens that leaving the drink be helps your sleep, and we will get to sleep before we are done. So that is one more reason on the pile. If you are finding some use in this, and you would like these old ways explained the way your grandfather might have told them, go ahead and subscribe. I sit down like this every week and talk through one honest habit at a time. No hurry and nothing to sell you. The quietest piece of the whole evening is one that surprised me most when after the work is done and the supper is cleared, the old folks sat. That is all it was. They sat. On the porch as the sun went down red over the fields, in the rocking chair by the window, at the table with the lamp turned low. They were not scrolling anything, and they were not stirred up by loud news. They sat quiet and they let the breath go slow and easy, in and out, unhurried, the way a body breathes when nothing is chasing it. The part I did not expect is this. That slow, easy breathing, it turns out, is a real and measured thing for your pressure, dressed up in the plainest of clothes. When a person sits and lets the breath slow right down to around 6 long, easy breaths a minute, slower than most folks ever breathe in the daytime, the pressure eases in that very moment. And more than that, if a body makes a plain habit of it, sits and breathes slow like that a little while each evening, the resting number itself comes down some over a couple of weeks. The heart doctors have looked at it and counted it a reasonable thing for a person to do. Not a miracle, a reasonable, sensible, proven help. In one large study, folks whose number was running high sat and breathed slow like that for about a quarter of an hour, and the top number came down close to 10 points right there in that one sitting. And the ones who kept the habit up evening after evening found the resting number too, the one they carry around all day long, had eased down a few points and stayed there. 6 breaths in a minute is slower than a body thinks it is. A person sitting at rest, not trying, takes a breath, something like a dozen or 15 times a minute without ever counting them. To slow that down to 6, long and easy, is a deliberate thing you have to mean to do, but it is a small thing and a gentle one, and that is the beauty of it. The reason it works is a plain one, and it is a wonder when you understand it. A body has its own governor on it. The way the old gas engine in the shed has a governor that keeps it from running away with itself. When you are stirred up, hurried, worried, that governor lets the pressure climb so you are ready to move. When you sit and breathe slow and easy, you are speaking to that governor in a language it understands. You are telling the body the work is done, the danger is past, it is safe to bank the fire down. The slow breath calms the body's own alarm and steadies that inner governor, and the pressure eases off in answer. The old folks had this every single evening. They just called it sitting on the porch, or saying their prayers, or resting a spell after a long day. It went by no grand name, and it needed none. The old folks were simply doing it. Now I will keep my promise to be honest with you, because that is the whole point of this channel. The drop from slow breathing is a modest one. It is not the same for every person, and for some, it is small. It will not by itself do the work of everything else together, but it is real. It costs you nothing but a few quiet minutes, and there is not one soul on earth it could harm. A few quiet minutes on the porch, letting the breath go long. There are worse ways to spend the end of a day, and that quiet evening leads a body straight to the last piece, which ties it all together in a bow: sleep. Remember the very first thing I told you, that your pressure is meant to bank down low overnight like coals in the stove. Well, that settling leans on real sleep to do its work. It needs a good, long, dark night to happen the way it should. And there lies the trouble. Short sleep, and poor broken sleep, works against that settling. When a body does not get its rest, when the nights run too short or too restless, the pressure does not bank down the way it is meant to. The fire keeps burning up through the night when it ought to be coals. Folks who sleep too short, under about 6 hours a night as a regular thing, carry a fair bit more risk of their pressure climbing over the years. The night rest is not idle time. It is when the body does its mending, and the pressure does its settling, and you cannot skip it without paying for it somewhere down the line. And it does not need a lifetime of bad nights to show. Even one short night, or one broken one, can nudge a body's daytime number up by several points the very next day. And it is not only how long you sleep that counts, but how sound, a night full of waking and turning. Sleep that never sinks down deep works against that settling near as hard as a short night does. The body wants the whole long, quiet, dark stretch to do its banking. Cut it short or chop it up into pieces, and the body never gets its long stretch to bank down. So the old rhythm, The one that came before bright screens and late lights, the early night in a dark, quiet room, that was doing real work for the old folks' pressure while they slept, and they got the good of it without ever knowing why. An early bed, a dark room, a quiet house. That is a great deal of the reason their pressure fell the way it was supposed to, night after night, for a lifetime. And one plain warning to close the circle, because it pulls two of these pieces together. Leave the heavy, salty, late plate alone. When a person eats a big, rich, salted supper late in the evening, right before bed, they are doing two wrong things at once. They are loading in that factory salt at the very hour the body most wants to settle, and they are setting the whole works to running, the digestion and the labor of it, right when the body is trying to wind down for the night. It is like stoking the stove full up right at bedtime and wondering why the house runs hot till morning. Eat early, eat light, eat plain. Let the body have a long, quiet stretch between the last bite and the dark so it can bank its fire down in peace. I want to step back now and tell you the thing that has stayed with me longest since I studied all this out, and I am going to reason it out plain, with no dark story attached to it. Because I do not care for dark stories, and I do not think you came here for one either. Look back over everything I have told you tonight. Salt the supper light and fill the plate off the garden. Leave the nightcap be. Sit quiet a while of an evening and let the breath run slow and easy. Get off to bed early in the dark. Every last piece of it is free. Not one of those things costs $1. And I got to wondering why, if these plain habits are this proven and this strong, a body has to go looking so hard to hear them told plain. And when I sat with it, the answer was simpler than any plot. There is nobody who grows rich telling a person to salt their food lightly and go to bed early. No salesman works the corner for an early night, and no company profits when you fill your plate with beans and potatoes out of your own garden and drink water instead of the evening glass. That plain wisdom has nobody to shout it, nobody with a reason to buy the time to put it in front of you, because there is no money in it for anyone. Meanwhile, there is real money in the salty boxed supper that drives the number up. And there is real money, later on, in managing the trouble after it is set in. It is not a scheme. Nobody is plotting against you. It is just that the plain free thing profits no one. So it goes quiet, and the thing that profits somebody gets shouted from every side. That is the size of it. And let me be just as plain about the other side, so you do not carry the wrong thing away from this. None of what I said is a reason to distrust your doctor or to look sideways at the medicine you were given. Your doctor and that medicine save lives every single day, more lives than any garden ever will. High blood pressure is a doctor's ground, and it always will be. You get your number known, and you get it watched. You keep whatever appointments you keep, and you take whatever you were told to take. Faithful, and if you ever get a reading that runs very high, or you feel a real warning in your body, that is not a moment for a video from a farmer in Pennsylvania. That is a moment for a doctor, right then. I am a farmer. I am not the man to call in an emergency, and I would be doing you wrong to pretend otherwise. What these plain evening habits are is a true start, and a strong one that rests in your own two hands every single evening of your life. They are not a cure, and they are not a replacement for anybody's care. They are the plain old way a sound body was kept sound, offered to you to carry to your own doctor and put to work alongside everything else you are doing. So let me leave you with one thing to do tonight. Just the one. The way I always do. Tonight, when Ruth would be setting supper and the sun is going down over your own piece of the world, salt the plate with a light hand and pile the rest of it with plain vegetables off the garden or the plainest ones you can find at the market. Leave the evening drink on the shelf just for tonight and see. When the meal is cleared and the house goes quiet, sit yourself down somewhere comfortable and let your breath go slow and long and easy for a few minutes. Unhurried, nothing chasing you, and once you have sat a while, get to bed early, in a room as dark as you can make it, and let your body do the quiet settling it was built to do. That is the plain evening, all of it, and it is yours tonight for nothing. And if your number runs high, you take it to your doctor. You never change your medicine on your own. You carry these plain habits in alongside the good care you are already getting, and you let the two of them walk together in the same harness. If this was worth your time, subscribe, and I will be here next week with another plain old habit, told plain. Good night from the farm.